Everybody loves a good Cinderella story until it happens to you. This is certainly the time of the year when everyone's filling out the brackets, looking to see who will be the Cinderella team. And unfortunately for Tennessee, they've been on the wrong end of these Cinderella stories a number of times. Paige Dauer alongside Jimmy Hyams. I mean, you just look at the last couple of years, Jimmy, and Tennessee hates to see a Cinderella team coming because they have fallen victim to three really good Cinderella teams in the last decade or so.
Yeah, two of them are not very highly seeded, and then two of them use the momentum of beating Tennessee to advance to the Final Four.
Yeah.
So, and Tennessee has not written many Cinderella stories in their favor.
No.
They've been on the other end of that, as you pointed out. So we'll see if they can get past it this time. But, yeah, within the last 6 or 7 years, Cinderella's marched right past Tennessee a couple of times.
They absolutely have, and I think the one that has burned everyone's memory is that 2018 run, Loyola Chicago, the Ramblers.
Yes.
Absolutely decimated what Tennessee wanted to do in an otherwise spectacular season that they were trying to put together.
Loyola was close to a double-digit seed. I don't remember exactly where they were. Tennessee was a high seed. They had tied for first place in the SEC. They had a lot of very credible wins along the way. They made the SEC tournament championship game before losing it. They win their first game over Wright State, and then they play Loyola Chicago. Mm-hmm. And Tennessee was expected to beat them. I mean, there was no question. Now, the one thing that did happen to Tennessee was they had a center, Kyle Alexander, good defender, good rebounder, could score, a little bit like Felix Akpara.
Okay.
A little bit better offensive player than Akpara. He got hurt, didn't play, and he was the rim protector. You take that away, and then Loyola ended up gaining some momentum during the course of the game. There was the big story about Sister Jean.
Yes, you
that
can
was
forget her.
Team.
She's still kicking it too.
Yeah, and she was in her 90s then, and she's still around. But there was so much flair about them, and they became not just a Cinderella story of beating Tennessee, but of the whole tournament.
Yes.
And they make the Final Four.
Yeah. So let's go through their run real quick. So they came in as a 12 seed. They defeated Tennessee 63-62 on a last-second shot, ending their Sweet 16 run for Tennessee. They had to defeat Miami. That took a game-winning shot by the Ramblers as well. Then they go on to defeat Nevada, Kansas State, but then fell to Michigan in the Final Four. Yeah. What an incredible run by a 12 seed. Unfortunately for Tennessee and all those other top-seeded teams, they were not very happy to be on that side of it.
You're supposed to beat them. You're a double-digit favorite, or at least a significant favorite.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're fighting like, if we make a turnover here, we miss this shot, we may lose to these guys. Yeah. So the pressure ends up going toward, in that case, Tennessee, or toward the favored team. And if you're the underdog and you're hanging in, you're gaining a lot of confidence, right? And then the shot they made to beat Tennessee was a fortunate shot. It bounced around the rim a few times.
Yes.
But you put yourself in position for that to happen by not putting away the opponent when you should have.
Tennessee was getting absolutely torn up on the inside, torn up on the glass, trying to get rebounds. And the Ramblers just absolutely ran away with it. I think a lot of us probably remember number 24, Andre Jackson, who especially in the paint was just torching Tennessee.
One reason is Kyle Alexander wasn't there, who was the 6'10" rim protector. The other thing that I remember is that Loyola did a really good job of milking the clock. Yeah. And so they would pass 5, 6, 7 times in a possession, and many of their baskets came in the last 5 or so seconds of the shot clock. So they would make you work on defense and then find a shot. Some of them were fortunate, but sometimes they just ran it very well. And I think it frustrated Tennessee to play good defense for like 25 seconds and then give up a basket.
Yes, and what was crazy is like when you go back and you maybe watch the highlights of that game, they had to make some really tough baskets in the paint. I mean, there were a couple of times as I was like taking notes of it, it was Jackson, and he's having to split 2-3 defenders to try and use some fancy feet to get to the basket, and they absolutely did. Or you'd have a really strong defensive rebound in transition, fast break 3. That happened in the second half specifically to give them a 50-41 lead. And then there was really nothing Tennessee it felt like they could do at that point.
As I remember this, I hope I'm right about it, Grant Williams was the SEC Player of the Year for Tennessee. He was on that team. Admiral Schofield, a very good player, was on that team. Jordan Bone, the point guard, was on that team. Jordan Bowden, really good player, local product. that was a very talented Tennessee team, even without Kyle Alexander.
Yeah.
They were more talented than the Ramblers, but they just couldn't get past them. And it was just, what had been a really good season, a very disappointing end to what had been an outstanding year for Rick Barnes.
We have an exceptional group of attorneys that work here. We're all trying to be better attorneys, be better advocates for our clients, be better people.
It makes me proud to be part of the team when I see how much the attorneys care about their clients.
It's truly one vision. I feel like every single person who works here has that same vision, and that's to treat all of our clients like family.
We've developed such a tight-knit team. Everyone is unified in being selfless in their representation.
The Garza Law Firm. Let us help.
And thankfully they avoided a Cinderella story for a couple of seasons until 2021 when they met Oregon State.
Yeah, Oregon State was a team that ended up winning the conference, and they had some momentum going, but still I thought Tennessee would be able to handle them. Oregon State was a hot team late.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that you have to guard against when you play a team that comes in hot. Now, some people will argue, oh, they're tired. Okay, well, that can go both ways.
Yeah.
You could either be tired entering the tournament, or you could carry momentum. I've seen it happen both times. Now, I know a lot of people get more concerned about, oh gosh, they're worn out now. How are they going to do in the tournament? But Oregon State came in as a team that felt like, hey, we can beat just about anybody. Tennessee did not play very well. One of the things that is an underlying reason that, to me, that Tennessee has lost some of these games is their offense goes AWOL.
Yes.
They have droughts. They don't shoot well. They don't shoot well from three-point range. They get outscored in a 12-2 run. These things happen with them, and that's why I like teams when they go into the NCAA tournament that are ranked in the top 25 in defense, top 25 in offense.
Yes.
Some of the Rick Barnes teams were ranked really high on defense, but 60, 70, 80 on offense. And when your offensive efficiency is that low, in particular in pressure moments of a tournament,
Sure.
then it's glaring that you end up not shooting very well. And that's been one of the underlying reasons I think that Tennessee has been the victim of Cinderella stories. But Oregon State, to me, was better than Loyola.
Right.
But still, Tennessee, I thought, should have beat Oregon State.
Yeah, so let's look at Oregon State and maybe what qualified them to be that Cinderella-type team. So they came in, took on Tennessee, who was a 5 seed. They fell to Oregon State as a 12 seed, 70-56. Again, not close like you mentioned in the opening round. Oregon State went on to the Sweet 16. In order to get there, they had to defeat 4-seed Oklahoma State 80-70 in the round of 32, and then fell to number 2-seed Houston, who Tennessee could maybe meet this year, and the Sweet 16 61-67. So just kind of crazy when you maybe go back and you look at that game. You talk about maybe some of the scoring droughts Tennessee went through. If I just kind of view my notes a little bit, Tennessee was outscored 33-19 in the first half. What a lopsided first 20 minutes that game was.
19 points in the first 20 minutes.
Yes, and then matched the scoring in the second at 37 apiece.
So that 19 points is indicative of a team that's not very efficient on offense.
Yeah, Tennessee.
And that's what I think that's what got them in trouble.
Yes.
And even though Tennessee made some runs at Oregon State, they never really, to me, got in a position where I thought they were going to win the game.
So Tennessee missed 7 of its first 9 shots to start that game, while Oregon State got a double-digit lead on a nice putback effort. We've talked about rebounding against the Ramblers, and that made it 18-7, doubling Tennessee's efforts there.
Yeah, and that's another point, too. Tennessee can't get a slow start. Sometimes the stage is too big for people that have not been on that stage before. But I thought Tennessee had enough veteran players then to where that wouldn't happen. I was wrong. They ended up, once again, struggling out the gate. Some people point to tired legs. I'm not smart enough to always discern that. I think sometimes that's just a convenient excuse. Well, they must have been tired. They lost. Well, sometimes you just don't play well, even when you're not tired. Whether that happened with Oregon State, I don't know for sure. But I do know the slow start, when they got behind the 8 ball in that regard, they just couldn't overcome it, and They got ousted quickly. Andrew's Physical Therapy at Blaine and Strawberry Plains. That's where I've gone to rehab my knee, shoulder, and elbow. When rubbing a little dirt on it ain't good enough.
It's important to make the right decisions, like when to go for it on 4th down, or when to kick the field goal or go for the touchdown. It's also important to make the right insurance decisions, too. That's why my office, Trey McAdams State Farm, is here to help you select the right protection at the right price. Our office will make sure you understand your State Farm coverages, so you'll know what to expect when the unexpected happens. With Trey McAdams State Farm, it's easy to make the right call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Proud sponsor of the Tennessee Vols.
Unfortunately for Tennessee, I mean, they've had another recent snafu with Cinderellas when you go back to the 2023 season against Florida Atlantic. They continued their Cinderella run all the way to the Final Four. So to get there, let's look at a couple of FAU's wins. So it included wins over Memphis, Tennessee, Kansas State, and then they ended up losing to San Diego State in the Final Four.
Well, Zakai Ziegler got hurt late in the year. There were only a few SEC regular season games remaining. So he goes out, and they certainly missed him against Florida Atlantic. Jemai Meshack tried to play the point. They had several people they rotated in as point guards.
Yes.
And it was obvious in the SEC tournament. They lost to Missouri in the second game that Tennessee played in the SEC tournament that year, and they were point guardless, I thought. They really missed Ziegler then. Meshack did the best that he could there, but he was not a natural point guard. I thought it hurt him. So the two injuries had an impact. Now, was Tennessee still talented enough to win those games? Yes, they were. I remember John L. Davis being a really good player for Florida Atlantic. He's now on the Arkansas roster. But they, and that was a team that got hot. And so much of March Madness about a team getting hot at the right time. And that was a team that did that. But a lot like Loyola, in my opinion, Florida Atlantic, I think they're the Owls.
Yes.
They were hanging in there with Tennessee, and when they jumped into a lead, I thought Tennessee almost panicked. Like, what are we doing behind? We shouldn't be behind this team. So the pressure got to Tennessee. Florida Atlantic got confidence, and they were able to win the game. And another very frustrating loss, not just for Tennessee, but for the Vol Nation, because, let's face it, they get tired of seeing Tennessee lose in the NCAA tournament when Tennessee is the better seed.
Yes. We look at how this game started. Number 2, Nick Boyd was able to get a tough bucket off the glass with 0.9 seconds left on the shot clock. Of course, that was early in the game, so it was just 5-5. You look later, there's just about 3 seconds left. They get another bucket. One time, it's 4 seconds left. They get one. 7 seconds, 2.3 seconds. Yeah. How much does that wear you out? Where, again, you say great defense for 25 seconds, and then you just kind of fall apart in those final few seconds, and they make you pay for it. And those two teams missing some of your best players for Tennessee in both of those games, really costing them maybe when you're wanting that leadership or a defensive player, kind of like Zakai Ziegler. It was in that season that he was a semifinalist for the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. So you certainly wanted that out on the court, and you didn't have it, and that's what led, the Owls to be able to totally just rip them apart.
It's very frustrating. It's frustrating to play good defense for a long time, and then you shrug your shoulders after they make a shot. It's like, what am I supposed to do? And a lot of them were tough shots.
Yes,
okay?
Yes.
So yeah, I could see where you sit there and I'm playing defense and I'm getting after it, and they're scoring. You'd almost rather them score with 15 seconds left on the clock instead of 2.
Yeah, because you know what that's going to do for my confidence if, you're trying to stop me for 30 seconds and then just all of a sudden I see you take a moment off and I go and get that tough bucket and then the bench erupts, because that's what it looked like. I mean, they kept panning to the Owls bench and they were just erupting every single time they made a basket. And I think when we look at these 3 games, a couple of common themes that I think you and I are picking up on, and probably what everyone else is too, is, being able to be tough in the paint, battling on the glass, and then somehow some guy on that opposing team just absolutely gets the hot hand, and Tennessee does not have an answer. Yeah. And I think this year Tennessee's defense has looked a lot better. I think they've looked a lot tougher around the rim, and hopefully that'll help them when they get ready for Wofford on Thursday, because it would be nice if they don't fall victim to a Cinderella story and every other season at this rate.
Yeah, and the Wofford team, Tennessee beat them by 21 last year in the regular season.
Yeah.
Tennessee should win that game. The next game is the one.
They should have won these games too.
Well, they should have. That's right. I haven't looked at the line where Tennessee is. I'm sure they're a double-digit favorite.
Yeah.
I do think that Tennessee has, once again, enough experience. They've got, look at their guards. I mean, they got 4 senior guards. Typically, NCAA tournament play is about really good guard play. Not just on offense, but on defense, too. And
Yeah.
Tennessee answers the bell with that. There are very few teams that have a defensive guard tandem like Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Mashak.
Yes.
So that benefits you. Also, Lanier is an outstanding scorer. He's one of the top scorers in the SEC. So you've got the firepower, you've got the defense at the guard position. So you should be able to deal with this. The next round is when you might worry a little
It's
bit,
a little dicey, yeah.
but I would expect. I heard somebody earlier today saying that Tennessee might put in some of their game plan for UCLA or Utah State, and I'm saying, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
There's no way you're looking past Wofford. If you are, you're a
Especially
fool.
what we just talked about.
Yeah, exactly. So you've
Yeah.
got to focus on this team,
Yes.
and don't even think about the next one because you need to take care of business. And we have seen upsets galore in the NCAA tournament. So you better pay attention to Wofford, and I would expect Tennessee to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that was part of my SEC tournament recap where I was talking to Zakai Ziegler in the locker room, and that's back on the homepage if you all want to give that a listen. But he does talk about how whoever we face, we are facing one of the best 64 teams in the country. We can't take any part of this process lightly. And he's reminded of when he did injure his ACL and he missed the chance to be a part of what could have been an Elite Eight Final Four team. And he knows going up against Wofford, who has a couple Cinderella themes to them, to not take any of that lightly.
Well, and Tennessee is certainly battle-tested.
Yeah.
Look at what they had to go through in the SEC. The SEC was by far the best conference in the country. Got 14 teams in the field. That's a record by 3.
Yeah.
So, and I'll say this too. I don't know that Wofford is much better than the worst team in the SEC.
Right. I guess you have
take South Carolina or LSU.
Right.
So you should handle them. You should take care of business. And even if you have a slow start, you ought to be able to pull away. Then the next round, okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I think UCLA is going to be the team that emerges, and Tennessee needs to deal with that. I do like the fact that Tennessee is playing in Lexington,
Yes.
in Rupp Arena. It's not a long drive for
No,
Tennessee
and if
fan
you're
base.
going, comment and let us know because
that's
I
right.
will be there.
That's right.
So yeah, hopefully there's a ton of orange. And I guess if we kind of look at this game real quick, I know we were joking earlier about maybe a Cinderella type theme for the Wofford team. Of course, they had to win their conference to get the automatic bid here. Maybe that gives you a little bit momentum. Maybe that's a common theme with the other teams. But the free throw style that one of their players has, number 14, Kyle Filowich, the granny style. Rick Barnes tried it earlier today. I think he went 6 of 10 from the line.
Oh, he did?
In the underhand, yeah. So if you haven't seen it, one of their players, when he goes for the free throws, he underhands it. I guess that's what you call the granny style.
That's
and
right.
he ends up being a pretty good free throw percentage guy for the team. And who knows if that is what will be the Cinderella theme for them, because free throws have given Tennessee some nice wins in the SEC tournament for sure.
Yeah.
Does that happen in this game? Do you think you would go 6 of 10 if you went the granny style at the free throw?
Probably not.
Oh, darn.
I
probably would.
was a really good free throw shooter, but I wasn't much on
you
the
don't know
granny
about
style.
that.
I do hope Tennessee fouls him at least 3 or 4 times.
So
Because
he's-
I want to see it. I want to see it.
It would be nice.
One of the greatest free throw shooters in history was Rick Barry in the NBA, shot over 90% using the granny style.
That's crazy.
There was another free throw shooter. There was a horrible free throw shooter that went to the granny style to improve himself. He wasn't all that accomplished with it, and that was a guy named Wilt Chamberlain. But there is a history of seeing that in the NBA.
So right now his average is 31%.
From the foul line?
Yes.
Shooting underhanded?
Yeah, I don't know if he does it every game. I need to maybe do some more investigation, but he is going viral for doing it at least one time. But when we look at his last handful of games, he is 3 of 7 in the last game, which was their conference title game. 1 of 5, 1 of 5, 0 of 3, 1 of 2, 1 of 2, 0 of 3, 6 of 10. So
I bet you Rick Barnes would love to get a hold of that guy and show him.
maybe they should
how to
foul him because
shoot
he's
the
only
granny
31%.
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rick
He's
Barnes.
6'9", 250, I think. And he's a unit for sure. So that will be an interesting matchup for Felix Akpara. Hopefully he's still in the weight room. But if they have a Cinderella theme, maybe it's not at the line, but maybe it is. But starting Thursday, I think it'll be really interesting. Rick Barnes, his New Year's resolution is a Final Four team. This team had some slips in the locker room when they said our goal is the national SEC championship. So I think, they really want, I think they might have a different type of focus to them, obviously with the types of seniors that are on this team that won't be coming back next year, just really wanting to make sure that for that class, for Rick Barnes and everything he's done here, for this to really, truly be the year they do it.
I think, I got asked this the other day, what's Tennessee's ceiling? I think the ceiling is the Final Four. I think they're good enough to get there. They've beaten Auburn, which is the number 1 overall seed. They've beaten Florida by 20 at home. They lost to 30 on the road, but they still beat them by 20 at home. They can play with the best teams in the country. They have proven that when they play well.
Yes.
So we'll have to see if they do that. Now, what's the basement? I'd say second round. If they don't play well, they could fall to UCLA or Utah State.
Yeah.
I would think. I would be stunned if they lose to Wofford. I've been stunned before.
Yes.
But I'd be stunned if they don't get by Wofford. So
Yeah.
I think this team could win 1 game or they could win 4. I don't see them winning a national championship, but what an accomplishment to get to the Final Four.
100%.
Last year, there was a team from the SEC that made it to the Final Four for the first time ever, Alabama. So now we'll see if Tennessee can be another SEC team that makes it to the Final Four for the first time.
And how incredible would that be? We're getting off topic, but how incredible would that be for this to be the team to do that when it's their most depleted roster?
Yeah, they don't have much depth. They
No,
really don't.
they don't.
They lost Estrella to a foot injury,
Yep.
had surgery. They lost Cameron Carr,
Yeah.
who I thought was going to be a guy that was be one of their better scorers coming off the bench, and he left the team December 23rd.
Yep.
You had some other transfers before that
Yeah.
weren't going to be very impactful, I don't think. But still, I thought the loss of Carr took away another offensive option for them. So, yeah, for them to get there, and they don't have great depth now. They really don't.
No.
And to me, there's only one guy that has been consistently productive coming off the bench, and that's Gainey.
Yeah.
Now, Phillips has shown flashes of it. Dubar has shown some flashes, but he's not been as impactful as we thought. He's had personal issues,
Yes,
of course,
yeah.
that have
Tragedy, yeah.
yes, that have impacted his season, no doubt. But and then you got a freshman point guard who gets a couple of minutes. He's not making any impact at all. So,
No.
but at this time of year, Ziegler better be ready to go 38 minutes. You better stay out of foul trouble too.
Yeah, him and Jemai and Felix find a way to guard where the refs aren't gonna nickel and dime you, you know?
Yeah, and Milicic too. You know,
He's got to get his confidence up. And that's
Yeah.
why, as we continue to get a little bit more off topic, it was something I talked about after the SEC tournament. I think them having this deep run, while it has more wear and tear on your body, to have this valuable tournament experience, because we saw how tense Igor was in that championship game. I think that will actually pay greater dividends to this team than the negative that they're more tired because they played to Sunday. Getting that experience as this team to build that chemistry is massive when it's now one or losing, you go home.
Here's the other thing about being tired at this time. Rick Barnes is smart enough to know that you can't have grueling 3-hour practices.
Yeah.
You got to cut that down to 75 minutes or so and give them the rest that they need.
Yeah.
You can get your legs back that way. So sometimes I think the tired theme is overrated because I've seen teams make runs and they should have been tired.
And I haven't seen Sagai Ziegler out of breath this whole season. And
No.
he plays like 39 minutes. So, yeah.
Well, and I remember UConn in 2011, they had to win 5 Big East tournament games to even make the field. They did it, and then they won the NCAA championship. They should have been tired, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Georgia one year in the SEC tournament in about 2008, there was a tornado that ripped the roof of the Georgia Dome, and so they had to delay and postpone a lot of games. Georgia won 4 games in 3 days. They won 2 games in 1 day.
Oh, my gosh.
They weren't tired. So I don't, sometimes I think that's overrated.
Yeah.
And sometimes, yeah, maybe it was a factor. But I know a lot of people, well, first time you lose, it was because you were tired. Well, maybe you just didn't play well.
Yeah.
So, we'll see where this Tennessee game, this Tennessee team worries me a little bit, though, because of what you just said in regard to maybe being tired. They don't have a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And so that concerns me a little bit about being leg weary. But again, a part of being able to overcome that is not overdoing it in practice.
Sure.
And I think Rick Barnes is smart enough to know that balance.
Yeah, and I think he's seen a number of iterations of teams to kind of know what that balance is. But yeah, again, I will be in Lexington starting on Thursday, hopefully through the weekend, and I might even try to get up to Columbus if the Lady Vols are still playing. So certainly make sure you subscribe so you can support us in our efforts to try to keep up with Lady Vols and Tennessee Ball basketball during the NCAA.
And you'll have several iterations
Yes.
coming from Lexington, won't
Yes,
you?
I will.
Yeah, all right.
I
Good
like
word.
that. Yeah. But we'll be back later this week. I have sit down with Steve Spearman, so certainly make sure to stay tuned for that on Thursday, and then all things Tennessee men's and women's basketball from there on out, hopefully all the way through the beginning of April. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.